First, we will download those files we're going to need for this audit sampling project. You can find those files on Canvas under Files, Audit Sampling Automation folder. What we need is the population data, the sample selection wizard, and the working paper. I already downloaded them into my local folder, so here are the 3 files. Next, we will open UiPath Studio. On this panel, on the upper right hand, we will click the process to create a new process. So here we rename it as Audit Sampling Project. And we choose the location so we can find where is the project folder is. So for me, I will put it under a project folder. So after I click select folder, it will automatically create a audit sampling folder to contains my project. So I will click create. Okay, cool. So before we work on UiPath, let's go to our project folder, audit sampling projects. Here you can see the project folder I just created. So what we need to do next is to put our files under the project folder so the UiPath will know which files it will work on. So let's go to my download, and I will select these 3 files, make a copy, and I'll go to this audit sampling project, I'll paste them here. Okay, then now let's go back to UiPath. Here on our main sequence, I will put 5 sequences inside here to make our project more structured, so we can understand what we are doing on each step. So for the first one, I will rename it as Get Sample Selection Criteria. And for the second one, I will name it as Document the Sample Selection Criteria. And for the third one, in this step, we will input the population data. Import population data. And then we will select our samples. So select sample. And for the last step, we will finish our working paper at this step. So I'll call it finish working paper. So let's work one by one. For the first one, let's double click it to get inside the sequence. So first, we need collect certain key information from the sample selection wizard to get the sample selection criteria. What we need is those information about the clients, about the account, etc., and about the upper and the lower limit. So to achieve this, we will use a single Excel process scoop. I will drag and drop it here, and inside it, I will use Excel file. So I will drag and drop that here. So here you can see for the first parameter you need to input is to indicate which Excel file you want the UiPath to work on. So we can do this by clicking Browse for Files and select the Sample Selection Wizard, click Open. And on the right-hand property panel, we will click the Resize window to change it to Maximize. And if you don't see the property panel, probably is auto hide somewhere. So try to look for this property panel to open it. So we will maximize our window, and next we will use a series of read cell activity to extract values from this Excel workbook. So we will search for resale value. There are two parameters. First, we need to indicate which cell we want the information to be collected from. The second one is we need to create a variable to save that information. So let's go to the first one to indicate the cell. To do this, we can put our mouse on the plus button, click it, Excel, and then there is indicate in Excel. We click that one. It will open our sample selection wizard, and we will indicate which cells we want to extract the value. So first one, we will extract the client name. We click this cell, click confirm. So you can see it can know the sheet name, which is the data inputs, and cell is B5. So, and then we will save it to a variable. To create a variable, we hold Control plus Key to create a variable. I will name it as client name. Okay, we will repeat this step several times to collect all the information we need here in the sample selection wizard. So indicate the cell. The next is account name. So confirm and Control K account name. And I need another read cell value activity again. Repeat this to collect the period and date. Confirm. Control K to create a variable called period and date. The fourth one, that's upper limit. So I will Control K to create a variable called upper limit. Next, that's a lower limit. So Control Key, lower limit. Last one, that's a number of random transactions. So click that one, confirm, and then I will create a variable for that called num_random transaction. Okay, and then after we collect those information, we need to make a screenshot of our sample selection wizard to document those criteria and put them on the top working paper later. So to get the screenshot of this selection criteria, I will move this a little bit bigger so it's much easier for you to see. So what we will need to do here is to use a attach window activity. You can see this attach window, and then here you can see the indicator window of screen. So we will indicate the window. Okay, I need to make this bigger and go back here to indicate the Excel file. And then we will use take screenshot activity. Be careful here. We will use the activity under Classic. So if you don't see Classic, you can click this filter icon and select this Classic. Make it checked. So we'll use this Classic activity. Oh, actually, it's not Classic. We'll use, so for here, we will use the take screenshot from installed, not the Classic one. So we'll use this take screenshot activity, drag and drop here, and we output, we will just save it to clipboard. So later we can just paste it to our working paper. So, and then we can indicate in Excel. We click this indicate in Excel. On the selection option here, click this All to and choose the active accessibility. So in this way, it will choose the entire window on the workbook. So I'll just click here and confirm. So here we basically take a screenshot of the entire visible window here and save it to a clipboard. Next, okay, so that's how we get the sample selection criteria. We can go back to our main sequence, clap this, and working on the second one, which is document the sample selection criteria to our working paper. So I will close this, don't save, and okay, to document our sample selection to criteria to the working paper, we will again to work with a Excel file. That means we will use a single Excel process scoop. Let's drag that and use Excel file inside it. So here we will indicate the workbook file, which is a working paper Excel. So here we also want it to be maximized. And inside this, we will indicate, oops, let's open that workbook file, working paper as to illustrate this. So you can see there are two sheets. We're gonna work. We will save the criteria to the sample documentation. So we'll paste our screenshot here. To do that, we will use a select a range. Select range activity under Excel. So we drag and drop it here. Range to select. So you indicate in Excel again. Select A2 or A3, doesn't really matter. I will use A3, so click confirm. And then the next we will paste the screenshot, which is stored in our clipboard right now. So that's, we will send a keyboard shortcuts. Let's click this record shortcut, hold Control V. So it will record our Control V. And after this, let's add a save Excel file to save our work here. So here is the second step, which is document the sample selection criteria in the working paper. Let's go back to our main sequence, clap this. Next, the third one, we will input our population data. Our population data is a CSV file, it's not Excel, so we will use a read CSV file. Read CSV. Drag and drop here. Let's browse for file. So you can see the CSV file population data appears. We click open, and then we will save it to a variable. Let's hold Control key to create a variable, call it DT pop data, stand for population data, and make sure this has header is checked because we have the header columns. And for this step, we will also get some basic information from our population data. We will count the total amount of transactions and the total dollar amount. To do this, we will use assign activity. Let's drag and drop below here. So on the left hand, we will create a variable to save the number of transactions and the dollar amount. Let's hold Control key. Let's call it num total transaction. And on the left hand, to get the total number of transaction, we will use a VB expression. So follow my typing here very carefully. First is the DT pop data dot rows dot count and parentheses. Click save. You can notice there is a error message indicating that cannot save integer into string. So that means we need to change the number of total transactions into integer. Oh, and by the way, the variables we created in our first sequence, we need to change the scope to main sequence so we can use it later. Sorry about that, I forgot to mention. So now you can follow me to change the scope of those variables to main sequence. And let's check the second one. Do we have any variables here? No, we don't create any variable. And for the third one, is number of transactions. Let's change it to main sequence. And DT pop data also change it to main sequence because we need to use it later. And the second assign activity, let's use it to create a variable to calculate the total amount, total dollar amount. Again, Control key. Let's type total amount pop data population. Total amount pop. So for the VB expression, it's a little bit complicated. So I already provide this on campus. You can just copy and paste to this part. Click save. So here you can see it says double cannot be assigned to string. That means we will change this variable type to double. To get the double type, we click the browse for types and type double. So we can find this double under system, double click that, and also change the scope to main sequence. All right, so here we import our population data. Next, let's go move on to the sample selection part. So for this part, we need to select the samples based on the sample selection criteria. If you remember, we discussed this during class. We need to select the key items, which is the transactions above or below the upper limit and lower limit. So that's our key items. And then we will randomly select 25 transactions from non-key item. That means those non-key items between upper and lower limit. So to do this, we need to process our population data to filter out who are key items, who are non-key items. So to do this, we will add a column to our population data table. Let's use add column activity, add data column. So here we can leave the first parameter as empty, and for the column name, let's put double quotes called key item, and we want to add this column to data table, our population data table. So now it's only add this column, but it doesn't add any value. We need to add a value for each transactions. So to do that, we will use a for each rule in data table. And for the data table, that's our DT pop data. And let's rename this to just a rule to make it simple. So to give value to the key item for each transaction, we need a if activity to make certain judgment to determine whether the transaction amount is below upper limit or is larger than upper limit or below than lower limit. So let's find if activity. That's the work under workflow if. So here we need a condition. So we want to compare the amount of each transaction with upper and lower limit. Let's first compare it with upper limit. So here, follow me to type this VB expression. Convert dot to decimal parentheses and row dot item parentheses double quotes amount, then large, then also convert dot to decimal our upper limit variable we collected in the first step. Save. So this condition compares a transaction amount of each rule with upper limit to determine whether it's a key item or not. So if it's larger than upper limit, it's a key item. Let's use assign activity to assign the assign 1 to the key item variable. So here that's row dot item in parentheses double quotes key item, and the value we're going to save is 1. So if it's not, that means it's below upper limit. We still need to compare it with lower limits. So let's use another if activity. This time for the condition, I will just copy this VB expression and paste it here. Now let's change this to smaller than lower limit. I will zoom it so you can see clear. Convert dot to decimal in parentheses row dot item, parentheses again, double quote amount, smaller than convert dot to decimal parentheses lower limit. That's a variable we collected from the first step, remember? So we click save. So if it's a smaller, lower than lower limit, that's also a key item. That means we can copy this assign, we can copy this assign activity to Control C, copy this assign activity, I just paste it into Zen. So now it compares the amount with upper limit. If it's larger, the key item will have a value equal to 1. If it's below the lower limit, it has a value equal to 1. So if it's not below the lower activity, so that means the transaction is between upper and lower limit, so that's not a key transaction. Then in this way, we will give the value as a 0. So that's for each row in data table, that's collapse it. Now let's add 2 more sequences to select the samples. First, let's select a non-key item sample. Okay, let's name it select non-key item. And the second sequence is select key item. Okay, so let's think about how to select samples from the population data based on the sample selection criteria. So we have key item and non-key item. And for the key item, we just select them all. And for the non-key item, we need to randomly select 25 transactions. So let's go to our population data and think about how do we achieve this. So far, we have a new column, which is indicator variable equal to 0 or 1, indicating that each transaction is key item or non-key item. So it's like this. For key item, we will just use a filter to set the key item equal to 1 and select them all. So non-key item is a little bit difficult one here. Let's think about how to do that. So let's see, we already filter out all the non-key item that's equal to 0. So let's just delete these 2 and focus on these 3. How do we randomly select all the non-key items? Let's say all those are non-key items. How do we randomly select the 25 out of 3? The logic is to create a new column that store the random number from 1 to 1000 with 2 decimals. So in this way, we create a random number for each transaction, and then we sort them from ascending or descending order. That doesn't matter. We sort them. We sort the random number. Let's say 1.01 2.056, 4.06, 4.21, etc. We create a random number and sort them. So then we can select the top 25 of them. And then to achieve this, we need another instrument column. I will call it random index. So the random index will equal to, after sorting, the random index will equal to the index of each transaction that will start from 0 in UiPath data table to 1, 2. It will be like this. So, and then I will just further filter out all the non-key item to select the random index until equal to 25. It's like this. So I will have a new filter to filter out based on the random index column to select the top 25 of the non-key item data table. So here, this is the logic. Let's see how do we achieve this on UiPath. Don't save this, then get back to our UiPath. So first, we need to filter out non-key item. Let's use activity called filter data table. So the data table is our DT pop data, and let's click the configure filter, and we select keep. The column is our key item column, key item equal to 0. So in this way, we filter out all the non-key item and store it into a output data table. And here, let's create a new data table, hold control and key, let's call it DT non-key item. So after we filter out the non-key item, remember we need to create a new column that store the random number generated to do the sorting. So let's use the add data table, add a data column. So here we leave the first column as empty and give it a column name as random. And the data table is our DT non-key item. And then we need to use a assign activity to create a random number generator. Let's see, let's hold control key, create a variable called random number, and use a VB expression as new space random parentheses. Let's save it. So we can see there is a error message. That's because the variable type is not correct. So let's go to the random number and change the type to random. Let's click the browse for tabs and type random. See, we select the random under system. And by the way, for the non-key item data table, we need to change the scope to make sequence because we need to use it later. So now we have this random number generator. We need to create a random number for each transaction in the DT non-key item. To do this, we will use for each row in data table And the data table is dt non-key item. The role, we just use role. So here we will use assign activity to assign random number to each role in the dt non-key item. So for the value, we will use role dot item role dot item and parentheses double quote our random. So this random is this random we created here. And for the value, we'll use the random number generator we created previously. Let's use random number dot next in parentheses 1, 1000 plus random number dot next double parentheses. Save it. So in this way, we are not only generating a random number between 1 to 1000 in integer form, but we also include 2-digit decimals to make the random number more differently in case we have the same random number, like we have 2, 1 or 2, 10, etc. So now we have this random number created for each rule. Next, we need to sort our data table based on the random number. So let's use sort data table activity. The data table we want to sort is our non-key item, and on the right-hand property panel, we are sorting by the random column. We will put the random in the name parameter. See here the name of the column you are trying to sorting. So we use double quotes and random. So for the output part, we will just overwrite our non-key item data table. So that's dt non-key item. And then we need to create another column that's the index, random index, remember? So we need to use the add data table column again. The column name is double quote. Let's call it random index. And the data table is dt non-key item. And then we need to give value to this column. To do that, we will use the for each rule again. For each rule in data table, and that's dt non-key item. Let's just keep rule for to simplify the VB expression, and we use assign activity. So to assign role dot item versus double quote random index. For the right hand, what value we want to see, let's type the VB expression. Please follow me here. So zoom it a little bit. That's dt non-key item dot rows dot index of row. Save it. So here we create the index. That's what we will use to select the sample. So let's use the filter data table again to filter out the random top 25 random transaction we selected. So the data table will be our non-key item. Oh, by the way, before we do this, we need to change the variable of non-random transaction we collected from the first step into integer. So, and then let's configure the filter. Let's keep the column is random index smaller than non-random transactions. Okay, let's click OK. And so in this way, oh, by the way, output table. We need to save the filtered data table into an output variable. Let's create a variable called dt random item. So now this data table contains our randomly selected 25 transactions from the non-key item. And the next step is to write them into our working paper. So let's use the single Excel process group again. And following that is use Excel. Let's indicate the file we want to working on is the working paper. And let's use an activity called write data table to Excel. So here, what to write? That's our DT random item. So that will be our DT random item. Where to write? We can indicate in our working paper template. Let's click the indicate in Excel. So since it's a template, the location of each item should be constant. So we will start here, that's A21, to write the data table starting from A21. So we will click this A21 and click confirm. And remember our data table have a header, which is a column name. So we need to exclude headers here. And then let's use one assign activity to calculate the total dollar amount in our random selected data table. Because in our working paper, we will need those number of transactions and dollar amount of those transactions to finish the working paper. For the number of transactions, that's just a 25. We already have that value from our first step. So we need the dollar amount. Let's create a variable called total random transactions. And the right hand, we will use the VB expression again. I provided to you through on Canvas, but this time you cannot just copy and paste to here. We need to change one parameter, which is a data table. Previously, we are getting the dollar amount of all the population data, remember? Now we need to change it to our random item data table. So let's type dt random item, save it. So that's a double digit. We need to change the total random transaction into double variable type and change the scope to May sequence. Okay. For now, we finished the sample selection for non-key item, and let's continue to finish the sample selection for key item, which is more straightforward. So we just use a filter data table to filter out the top data and configure the filter as key item equal to 1. So in this way, we filter out all the key items that we need them all. So we just filter out and save it to a new data table. Let's call it DT key item. And then we just need to write this key item to our working paper template. So we use a single Excel work process scope and use Excel file inside it. And then we click the browse for type to select our working paper and use that write data table to Excel again. So what to write now will be our DT key item. The destination will be we can indicate it, but we can also write the VB expression. So remember, for now, we already put all the non-key item, which is 25 transactions. So start from 21, and we have 25 transactions. That means our key item starts at 46. Let's select A46 and confirm. So that's excel.sheet parentheses code sample selection dot range parentheses A46 in double quote. And again, we need to exclude the header. Again, we will use the assign activity to get the number of key items and the total dollar amount. So let's first get the number of key item. Let's hold Control key and let's see num key item. And on the right hand, for our number of key item, we use a VB expression. And follow me to type the VB expression. That's a DT key item dot rows dot count. For instance, save it. And you see the error message saying the integer cannot be stored to string. That means we need to change the variable type for num-key item to integer and change the scope to May sequence. And then we also need the dollar amount. Let's hold Control key, call it total key item. And again, we use the VB expression, but to change one parameter. That's the VB expression. We copy and paste here and change this DT pop data to DT key item. Save it. So we need to change the variable type of total key item to double. And change the scope to May sequence. Okay, so that's all. We finished the sample selection part. Let's come back here to our May sequence. So far, we already finished the top, the first 4 steps, and then that's finishing up our working paper. So to finishing up our working paper, what I mean is we will filter out all those information we need. So what we're gonna do here is, I will keep this for 1 second. Let's use single Excel process scope. Use Excel file. Let's indicate our working paper. And we will use right cell. So for the first one, that's a client name here. So for the what to write, that's our client name. We collected from the first step. And for where to write, we can indicate in the Excel. So that's client name. Click confirm. We'll repeat this step several times until we fill out all the information. So the next one is period ending. So that's the period end date, and we indicate in Excel period end date, confirm it. Next one, let's see, that's a number of total transactions and dollar amount of transactions for the population. That's number total transactions and where to write. That's a number of transactions, confirm. And with the right cell again. So this time we're gonna write the total amount pop and indicate it in Excel here. And then we have key upper limit and the lower limit. Let's use 2 more right cell activity here. So write the upper limit to here. And lower limit to here. Then we need several more right cell activities. So here we need to write the number of transactions and dollar amount of key items. So that's number of key item. That's the number of key item and total amount, total key item. Then we will do this for non-key item for our randomly selected sample. Number of random transactions, and that's non-key item. And that's the total random transactions, total, and indicate in Excel. And we also need the total number of our samples in the total transaction numbers of our samples and the dollar amount. We can use 2 more assign activity to calculate that based on the this value we calculated, we got previously. So let's use 2 more assign activity. create a variable control key. That's a number total sample. So this will be the number of key item plus number of random transactions. And we need to change the data variable type to integer. And for the total dollar amount, let's create control key, create another variable total sample amount. And use a VB expression with total key item plus total random transactions. And we need to change the variable type for total sample to double. Okay, so we need our last two right cells. That's our number of total sample, and write it to total sample. And total sample amount, write it to indicate, write it to here, confirm. Okay, so far we finished all the bot configuration for the audit sampling project. Just one more thing, to make the workflow more clear, I want to move this to assign activity outside the Excel process group. I should do this before the Excel process group, but I forgot. So I do this here, but now I want to move them out. Before I move them, I need to change the variables group from do to May scoop, May sequence. So that's the two variables we create here. Move them to May sequence, and I will hold Control and click this to select them both and cut them. And moving up, before the Excel process group, I want to create the variable. So I will paste the to assign activity here. Oops. Put them before the Excel process group. All right, so that's all. That's all the audit sampling bot configuration. Now let's close the working paper template. Don't save it, and let's run this bot. Hopefully it doesn't give me any error. Okay, so let's open our working paper to check the work. So first on the sample documentation, there is a screenshot from the sample selection wizard. And let's go to our sample selection. We can see it fill out all the information here. The number of key item is 11, and we can check whether this 2 is correct. So the sum of them is 6517038. That's the same one. And then here is our samples of non-key item and key item.